Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, I want to go over the Ron Matten podcast. And if I have some time, I'll also discuss Anthony DiMaggio's podcast and an update on the Hector Santiago situation.
Freddie wins.
Good evening, folks. Freddie Vasquez.
My dad Freddie Vasquez.
And this is Basement Politics Unfiltered.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
I hope you guys are having a good week. It was hot today, very humid, and now we have the rain, very reminiscent of Florida weather. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered, and it's raining outside. I love the sound of the rain, the water. Anyway, folks, Ron Matten tonight presented his podcast, Unfiltered and Unapologetic, or is it Unapologetic and Unfiltered? I'll get it right, Ron, and I really, truly get it wrong, but I'll get it right. But either way, I watched it. I caught most of it, and it was pretty good. I had the first Inspector General of the city of Yonkers, Phil Zisman. He was on the show, and Ron, and he had a good conversation. Most of it was on term limits. They did speak about the IG's position, which I thought was interesting, and that's a part I want to play. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now. This is Phil Zisman, the first Inspector General of the city of Yonkers, and he's talking about the position of IG. And again, I want to play this because it's important here.
Let's give you a little background about the office. The purpose of the office is quite broad. The IG is supposed to limit opportunities for fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption, and to promote economy, efficiency, and effectiveness in government. And you do that in two ways. You investigate allegations of wrongdoing, corruption, and you conduct audits to see if there's inefficiencies in government. Now, the audit side of the job, you're acting as a management expert, saying, hey, you can do these things better. We notice these inefficiencies. There's no allegations of wrongdoing. You're using your expertise and knowledge of government.
So he talks about the position of IG. What is the IG responsible for? What is their supposed to, what is their job? What is their objective? Because our IG gets paid a lot of money. That office also gets a lot of money in their budget. And they've recently, well, not recently, at the beginning of the year, during budget season, as it's known, went before the city council and requested an increase in their budget. Although the IG said it wasn't much, but it was still an increase. And really, what investigations have the office conducted, right? That's one of the questions that people have asked, have mentioned that on here on the podcast, and also have asked me, what is it that the IG is actually doing? Why do they need all that money? What investigations has actually conducted, right? And very recently, they have been investigating Christopher Johnson, Westchester County legislator, who recently submitted his resignation letter over a housing scandal, is currently being investigated by the Yonkers Inspector General. Another investigation was the Mike Cater investigation. Former City Council President Mike Cater was investigated over a quid pro quo, did I say it right? Allegations that were actually sparked by a letter to the Yonkers City Council by that man that you see to my left, Ron Matten. Yes, he wrote a letter to the city council over quid pro quo allegations that he read on the Yonkers Tribune. And that then led to the city council writing a letter to the IG, and he went on to investigate. But what else has the Inspector General investigated beside that? Nothing. Although they have been asked by the Westchester County DA to investigate the nepotism claims that were launched by Corazon Pineda Isaac and her campaign and also Ron Matten, both who are running against Mayor Mike Spano. Well, Corazon no longer, but Moranti, councilman, still is. He's running against the mayor, and so he was also a voice or vocal in the whole nepotism right allegations. But what did the inspector general say to those allegations? He called them political silly season. He didn't investigate them. But according to Phil Zisman, excuse me, the first inspector general, the guy who pretty much is, the blueprint for the job, he says that things like that should be investigated, even if he believes that there is nothing going on, and maybe it may be political silly season, but that is his job, and it also will show that he is willing to do his job and that there's nothing going on, right? If there's nothing going on, then investigate and show that, right? But he did not, even when the DA has asked him to do so, and the people of the city have asked, right? One of the things he says here is, and I don't want to keep playing the audio because the audio had some feedback, is the one of the key things about the IG, he says, is that he or she, or whatever pronoun they prefer to go by, must be independent, right? But how can they be independent if the mayor is the individual who recommends the person, and then the city council are the people that approve that person? How will the inspector general ever be independent, right? If you want the mayor to recommend you, you kind of have to be friendly with the mayor. And then if you want the city council to approve it, then you have to be friendly with the city council, right? So how can it ever be an independent IG when it is up to the elected officials that he may have to investigate to give him the job, get him the job? The $93,000 a year job, man, that's a pretty good job. Pretty good. So I don't see how that can be truly ever an independent person when he's or she, again, is relying on elected officials to put them in their job. The city council can remove the IG by a super majority, right? So if Tasha Diaz, Shanae Williams, Corazon Pineda Isaac, and Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, who Ron Matten says has buyer's remorse, and we'll get into that in a little bit, get together and become a real supermajority, and they decided to get rid of the current inspector general, they can do that. But will they? Most likely not. Let me see. I don't think so. That's where I'm going to put my money, right? The IG does not work for the mayor or the city council, Phil Zisman goes on to say. And then they also go on to discuss a strong mayor and what a strong mayor is. The first strong mayor was Terrence Zaleski. And as a result of this strong mayor change to our government, this is why they came up with the changes to the charter, making the amendments to now have term limits, right? The people wanted term limits. They thought it'd be a good idea. If you're going to have a strong mayor, then maybe there needs to be term limits. Prior to that, there were no term limits. So the two 4-year terms was something that was done in the 90s because the city changed to a strong mayor form of government, which basically is a mayor who appoints all of the commissioners, and various other people, department heads and stuff like that. The mayor creates the budget, though the city council votes on it, right? So the mayor has a lot of power, basically. So they had to create this term limit thing. So the people voted for 2 4-year terms, right? That's how it stood. Even when John Spencer and Phil Lamacone both, I believe, was Spencer Republican? I believe so. I know Phil Lamacone was. They both wanted to run for a third term. However, they did not because the people had voted for 2 terms, and they didn't want to go against that. John Spencer right here was very popular, according to the podcast, and he knew he probably would get the people to vote for him if he ran for a third term. However, he did not change it to a third term. So it wasn't until Mayor Mike Spano, our current mayor, in which he then circumvented the process of having the people vote on it through a referendum or putting it on a ballot, went and got the city council president to, I don't know if he did that or not. This when and the city council instead introduced the legislation. Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, the city council president, introducing it by herself. Then the council voted, except for Moranti and Corazon, but they weren't enough to stop it, and so there was this fourth term. But again, it was extended to a third term back in 2019. That was the first time. However, Corazon at that time was against it. Moranti did support it. He regrets it. Ron Matten also supported it. He says he regrets it, and he says this is why I've been so on fire with going after Mike Breen and being adamant about having the term limits change in this referendum and the petitions, right? Ron Matten was very instrumental in helping Moranti gather the petition signatures that they needed in order to try and get this referendum on the ballot in November for the term limits, to bring it back to 3. That one is to bring it back to 3 terms, not the original 2. And so that was recently submitted to the city clerk, Vinny Spano, the brother of Mayor Mike Spano, right? That's now being mentioned, both by these gentlemen here and also by what was it, CBS News or one of the news stations were talking about it. They mentioning Vinny Spano. He is the city clerk. However, he has recused himself, and they have then or have since hired an independent auditing company to do this. They went through 3 different independent companies before selecting one who is now in the process of reviewing the petitions that were submitted by Anthony Moranti. He submitted just over 5,000. I believe it was 5,200. He needed about 47, 48, or was it 4,200, something in that range, 10% of the amount of people that voted in the last governor's race. That's the amount they needed. So he got a little bit more. They're hoping that this gets through. And so I want to move it now to another point here. And let's talk about independent oversight, right? Independent oversight. What does that actually mean? And what does that actually mean?
About the term limit issue in Yonkers is there has been no independent oversight of this mayor. The IG basically has been absent. He's done some things recently, but they're all political in nature. I have not seen one audit report that he has conducted. And when the question of nepotism was raised, which is a perfect issue for the IG to do a report on and to investigate, he says, I know that there's no problem here. He just made an assertion without fact.
He actually said this is political silly season. So that was even demeaning the assertion even more.
And even more alarming in my mind is the absence of a functioning ethics board.
The absence of a functioning ethics board. The last time that ethics board was functioning, I believe, was in 2017. Correct me if I'm mistaken, when they agreed or allowed, I should say, John Rubel to sit on the chair of the real estate committee where he sits till this day. And the reason why they had to review that was because John Rubel's landlord over at the Brewing Company is AMS, and they are doing a lot of development here in the city of Yonkers, probably the biggest developers here. They're the ones that are doing Chicken Island, the Teutonia on Buena Vista. They're doing the North Broadway Locust Hill project, and others, I'm sure. All right. So they had to, review that. They did. They said it was okay. And since have not done anything. In fact, if you go on the Yonkers website, some of the people that are supposed to be on this board are actually dead. I don't know if they corrected that since, but it was that way up until very recently. So how can they have a functioning ethics board if some of the members are dead? I mean, they're not going to do us any good. So do we have a functioning ethics board? We don't. There truly is no independent oversight. Let's just be honest. Probably the New York State comptroller is the only independent oversight that we get here in the city of Yonkers when he reviews the budget every year and submits his report. But outside of that, pretty much it's just basement politics. And now you have Ron Matten, right? And then and maybe some others might come along as well. But that's it. For the most part, there is no true independent oversight. A lot of people take issue with the Spanos, right? The Spano family is like the Bush family, let's just say, because the Bush family are still around, very active in politics, and they've been in Yonkers, the family, 100 years is what I hear. And they're a very big family, a large family, 15 siblings, huge. And they have a lot of children who have children. And they are spread throughout the city of Yonkers, and many of them have city jobs. Many of them have jobs in top positions. Vincent Spano is the city clerk. He's the mayor's youngest sibling. He's the baby. He's the youngest. But the city council voted to have Vincent there. And this is my issue. And this is what I want people to really understand. I think the more we focus on Spano, the more you lose sight of how do you really, have any impact on politics, whatever that impact is that you're looking for. We can't be fixated on the Spanos. That's what they do. They're politicians. That's their game, just like many other people. And so ultimately, it is up to the people to come out and vote. You want to see someone else, you have to come out and vote for someone else. You want to see certain legislations introduced or certain legislations from being introduced. You want developments not to be approved. You have to come out and vote. You have to come out and vote for the council members. You have to come out to the meetings, the planning meetings, the zoning meetings, right? It's important because it's up to the people. It's up to the people. We are the independent oversight. And we do that by voting, and we come out and we are vocal. So that's what I want to focus on. I think a lot of us know the problem or problems. We know what's not being done, what needs to be done, what is being done that shouldn't be done, right? We know, but we have to come out and vote. You have to come out to vote. And as they mentioned here, there's a lack of, involvement and political engagement by the people. And it could be for many reasons. People are just jaded. They're disengaged because they say, well, the Spanos or whoever is just going to win again. What's the point of me voting? Some people don't even care. But they do complain. Some people, a lot of people that don't care, also are looking for a job, also are looking for affordable housing. And they could blame the Spanos, but they also should look at Tasha Diaz. They should look at Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy, Shanae Williams, those individuals who have done nothing to bring affordable housing to the city of Yonkers or create a new housing ordinance, right? So this is what they talk about here, the lack of involvement by the people. And I want to let you hear that here.
So when you have the two independent bodies that are supposed to be providing independent oversight, and you have a mayor now who says, I'm going to run for a fourth term, to me, that's a recipe for problems. I'm not saying that there is problems. I have no idea because I'm not in government anymore. But I know Yonkers, and I know how it works. And I think it's very anti-democratic. We have the people deciding what form of government they want in our city. They decided they wanted term limits. 8 years was enough for all elected officials. Then the elected officials decided that that wasn't good enough for them. They were not acting in the public interest. They were acting in their own self-interest to maintain their own powers. And this, to me, coupled with the lack of oversight that I mentioned earlier, is a recipe for problems within our city. And what really happens is it, prevents people from being involved in government. And I think that there is a question about, Yonkers government and with political leaders has always been about controlling jobs. And from my perspective, this is what this is about. This is maintaining, the workforce, which many people have benefited from the Spanos over the Spano mayoralty over the last 12 years. And when there's a change in regime, that means there's a change in commissioners. So this is the way government is supposed to work. We are supposed to have orderly change. We've seen the problems that we've had on the national level.
So he says that this is about jobs. It's about, people maintaining the status quo. A lot of people have received jobs, as a result of their relationships, with the Spanos. So these individuals are coming out to vote. Listen, that's their interest. You can't knock it, right? You can't knock it. I'm kind of a little bit, we say this again over and over, but what do? Nothing, because you have 8,000 people that come out to vote out of 56,000 registered voters, or Democratic voters, I should say, Democrats. So in the primary, you have 8,000 to actually come out to vote. And a lot of them are coming out to protect their interests. You can't be mad at that, right? You can't be mad at that because they came out to vote. So if you want something different, you have to come out to vote. Where are the other, 48,000 people, Democratic voters that didn't come out? Where are they? And that's a problem, right? That's a huge problem. People are disengaged. And Ron Matten talks about people, or even Phil Zisman talked about people being scared.
Why can't we in Yonkers have orderly, democratic change of administrations? No one is irreplaceable. And, I'm just saying that if you want to change term limits, do the right thing and let the people decide. But the politicians are afraid of what the people are going to say, because the people already spoke twice on it. Term limits are very popular, as we know from collecting at least 5,000 signatures in the recent campaign. Those signatures are presently at the clerk's office being evaluated. And I wouldn't be surprised if they find some technical reasons to basically say these petitions are not valid. And why would that be? Because they're afraid to put it to a vote. So I would say, let the people decide. I would say to the city council, irrespective of what the clerk says, they have the authority to put a referendum on the ballot, send it up to the Board of Elections, and let's see what happens in November. In December, we're going to have Christmas. November, we're going to have an election.
So are they afraid to let the people vote? Is that why it was not put on a referendum? Is that why both times that it was extended, they did not allow the people to vote? Well, according to Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy, when she introduced the legislation to extend the term limits, that's what the people wanted. According to the city council members who read through all the letters that were submitted by people who were in favor for it, that's what the people wanted. But did a lot of people know that this was actually happening? Did the city council members do a good enough job of notifying the people? Some people would say no. Some people say that it was done very quickly. It was pushed through. And this is something, according to Phil Zisman, that should not have been pushed through so fast. It should have been given a lot more time, a lot more consideration, and spoken with the people about before it was done. But again, our city council president, Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy, and is she not popular now among, her fan base? Is she having buyer's remorse, according to Ron Matten?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I believe that we should have the option to decide. Unfortunately, not a lot of people come out and vote in Yonkers. We had, I think there's 56,000 Democrats, and we only had about 8,000 show up for this election. And when the mayor or any administration, not just this administration, but when any administration controls so many jobs and so many people within government, it does become a problem for our democracy. When I ran 2 years ago, I had people who actually told me, well, I'm going to have to talk to Vinny and see what he says, which way I should vote. And I was out with John Larkin in Homefield, knocking on door to door. They knew John Larkin. They liked John Larkin, but they really still needed to talk to Vinny about a vote.
So Ron Matten says that people needed to talk to Vinny Spano to know how to vote. Is that true? Are people asking Vinny which way they should vote? And I'm sure that there are people that, don't want to vote in a way that would piss maybe the mayor off. Maybe they have a business or the administration or the city or whoever, and they are concerned with that. I don't know. Is that true? Well, some people may say that Ron Matten would say something like that because he's upset over what has happened with him and him kind of being outed from the inner circle. This is what people are saying. This is why Ron Matten has been going so hard, right? And he's been fighting even harder than Ron Schutte in Ron Schutte's campaign. It was Ron really that was running, Ron Matten anyway, right? So is Ron just upset? Is Ron just bitter? Or does Ron have a point? Does Ron have a legitimate and valid point? And is Ron making a lot of sense? It's up to you guys to decide and to come out to vote. Like Ron said, 56,000 registered Democrats and only 8,000 people came out to vote, right? So some people are upset, and they don't like this Ron Matten podcast.
Additionally, when I went around with the term limits petition, in the beginning, everybody was willing to sign. In the last weeks before we submitted the petitions, people would say, well, I don't want my name to show up there. Somebody's going to see me. They're going to talk about it. So there is a problem.
People are afraid of retribution, and at those public hearings, I'm guessing, I don't have any facts, any data on it, 50% of the people or more were city employees who were, encouraged by their unions to get out there and to support the status quo. I mean, that's, acting not in the public interest, but acting in personal private interests. And that's what I object to. I think we need more democracy, not less democracy. I don't think that term limit, something as important as term limits, should be ramrodded through during the holiday season, claiming that it's too late to put it before the people. It was never too late. This is just a effort to maintain power, of a political machine that runs our city. The Spanos were traditionally Republicans, but they changed their party administration registrations that were fine, but they effectively control the Democratic Party, the Conservative Party, and a good portion of the Republican Party. So, I mean, what we need is, and I agree with you, greater citizen participation in our elections, but it has to start somewhere. And that's why I got involved in the term limits, because I think it is popular and it is bipartisan. And, you have to start somewhere.
So does Spano or the Spanos control all the political parties here in the city of Yonkers? I've talked about the Republican Party needing to get themselves together. They're in shambles. The political, the Republican leadership. I'm not sure if you guys are doing right by the Republican Party and the members of that party. People who are Republican here in the city of Yonkers should be upset with you guys. Should be upset. You guys are making deals. But is it all, again, the Spanos' fault? People make decisions. People are all out for their own interests. And so they utilize this to maintain power. Why not? Again, we must call all these individuals out. Not just say Spano, 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 but say, hey, again, why did Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy introduce this legislation all by herself? Let's not play identity politics anymore. Got that? To all my Latinos and Blacks, right? So yes, the Republican Party, I don't know about the Independent Party, the Democratic Party, I've talked about this. A lot of the ward leaders and district leaders have strong relationships with not just the administration, but there are also individuals that are involved in our city politics that are manipulating many of our elected officials. And that is a man by the name of Zahi Jeris. We must not neglect this guy. For a two-time convicted felon, he got Sandy Anabi to flip on her vote. And this was back in 2010, before Mayor Spano was in office. The man is still involved in politics. He is behind the city council president, Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. She thanked him and her son and his son, Frankie Jeris. Tasha Diaz, the majority leader, the one who flip-flopped on the housing ordinance, the one who lives in affordable housing but doesn't want to increase affordable housing availability for other people to be able to have an opportunity as well. That woman, the one who's Black, but uses a Spanish last name to appeal to an ever-growing Hispanic population, that woman, the let's get it poppin' woman, yeah, he controls her as well. And who do you think got Shanae up there to Westchester County? Zahi mother effing Jeris. He is a political operative. He's been convicted of political extortion and bribery, fraud. He's pled guilty to election fraud. So I want people to understand how this all really works. That is a guy who has a lot of influence. He is the one that gets our elected officials, except for Corazon. So 3 out of the super majority, he controls. Zahi Jeris, he runs their campaigns. His son was listed as their campaign managers. So we must not forget. Okay? Let's go. I'll play some more.
And this is not the end of this circumstances. The mayor should know that there's a substantial number of people that believe that we need to do better and we have to open government up to new people. After 12 years, you run out of fresh ideas. That's why you have, new people. You want to encourage them to get involved. You said that people don't vote. They don't vote because they feel it does, government is a closed shop and there's nothing that they can do about it. Well, there is something they can do about it. And, I just decided when,
He says politics is a closed shop. So people don't come out and vote because they don't feel a part of politics. And it's true. It's very elitism, right? The political elite class, even within the Latino and Blacks, you see this elitism. The Latino elites, the same ones that go to the galas. You want to know who they are? Just look at the galas. Who are the same people that attend all these events? Who are the people that are constantly getting called to get an award? Same individuals. These are the political elites. And they will make you feel like you are inferior. That is their own insecurity, however. That is why they have to feel this need to be a part of this circle. Many of them are very phony, full of crap, which is why I can't really get with them. Just not my thing. But I don't hate them. I don't dislike you. I just call it like it is. Many of you, especially the Latino leaders, are leading us astray and have only hurt us, just like the Black leaders. The Black political leaders have only hurt you, Black folks, while feeding you with old, outdated food. No, it's still good, actually. It's just lost a lot of its nutritional value. As it gets older, you lose the nutrition. Just ask Tasha Diaz. She broke it all down on the Yonkers Voice. Anthony DiMaggio, I don't give consent to any man to do what he wants to do. You've criticized the Spanos, I think, enough times for people to know how you feel, right? But again, we must understand how all of this works. Targeting just the Spano without highlighting what other individuals are doing, because ultimately they are the ones that allow for many of this to for this machine to operate, right? They are a huge part of this mechanism. They play key roles. It's like I always tell the people, just on a national level. You ever see that picture of the rich people playing cards on a table that's being held up by a bunch of people's backs? And all you have to do is stand up and the game is over, but we refuse to stand up. They are the ones holding this table up. They keep us out the room, so we have to acknowledge that.
When there was the second term limit a law overturning, extending term limits yet again, and I'm sure there would be a fifth one if need be, someone had to do something. So I researched the law and I said, hey, we can do this. Can't hear you, Ron.
If the count, I know there's a second part to this where now if the signatures are deemed to be not valid, are we able to implement the second part of this?
Frankly, there's not enough time. The law required us to get 4,700 signatures. We submitted several hundred more than that.
So what they're saying here is basically if the, for whatever reason, the petitions that were submitted were no good, or the council decides not to move forward, they would have to gather another 2,500 signatures to get it on the ballot. Phil Zisman is saying there's probably not enough time. That's a tall order. If that is the case, they're very, they're pessimistic about it, right? They're not optimistic at all about the outcome of the petitions that were submitted by Anthony Moranti.
Who fully supported the term limit drive. And he went even further. He now has a third-party line. What is it entitled, Ron? The line?
It's restore term limits.
Restore term limits. So there will be an opportunity for people to vote on that line in November. I mean, I think ideally we should vote directly on the issue of term limits, and that's the nonpartisan vote that I support. But still, I've spoken in length with Anthony, and I know how committed he is to this, to the term limit concept happened here.
So again, Anthony Moranti is pushing this term limit thing. He voted to extend term limits the first time around. He says that he regrets that. He believed that it was the right thing to do at the time, and now he's against it. Some people say he's doing this because he wants to be mayor. This is his platform. This is what he's trying to sell himself on to the people. He's trying to rally the people up, rally the people against this idea. But in fact, many people don't care about term limits. Many people don't even care if term limits were dropped altogether and there were no term limits. If that were to be put on the ballot, either term limits going or either going back to 2 4-year terms, you can vote on that, or you can vote on doing away with term limits altogether. What would be your vote? What would be your vote? Because there are people that say most people don't even care about term limits. They don't even want to see term limits. And so Ron Mann talks about here as another way that this can happen, and he mentions Lakeisha Collins Bellamy and Shanae Williams.
I also understand that Anthony is committed, even if, which I believe Corazon is certain. So, and then it looked like Lakeisha may be sworn into Chris Johnson's seat
on the term limits line. So I
put a referendum to try to put a referendum that via the council, and I know that Corazon has indicated her support. And then it's quite possible that Shanae may be sworn into Chris Johnson's seat before the council meets again. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Shanae said she was also committed to this, so we'll have to see if her replacement is committed. And then it looked like Lakeisha Collins Bellamy had a little bit of buyer's remorse after. I know she put the legislation, the term limit extension through, but I've heard that she may have a little bit of buyer's remorse with her base for putting that through. So if Anthony could muster 3 additional votes, which I believe Corazon is certain, so he needs 2 more, we still might get it through the council without the referendum.
Will that happen? Will Anthony Moranti get another 3 individuals to support him? Yes, we have Corazon. Wait, who's Corazon? Anyone know who's Corazon? I didn't know that was a council member. We do have Corazon, of course. She's definitely going to be in support of Anthony Moranti. But who else? Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. Does she really have buyer's remorse? And if she does, is it enough to then side with Anthony Moranti and Corazon? I don't think so. Absolutely not. She has not become judge yet. Absolutely not. Tasha Diaz, definitely not. Her daughter just became a cop. You crazy? Not risking that. Tasha's good, okay? She is good. You see how much weight she lost. You see how much gold she got. The hair got better and more expensive, all right? That's not in the cheap hair anymore. It's the real deal. 2-finger rings, 14-karat gold chains, and all that. So she is definitely going to do what she needs to do. And it's not for her constituents. It's not for black people, not for Spanish people. It's for Tasha Diaz. Same as Shanae Williams. She just became a county legislator, pretty much. Pretty much. She became the county legislator after Christopher Johnson vacated his seat over a year ago at this point when he moved out of his district. The Chris Johnson investigation, I don't think that's political. I think if they continue, I think it's political if they go hard on him. I think at this point, he made the boo-boo. You slipped up. You did move out of your district. You vacated your seat. That is true. But, anything else other than that, that would be political. But that, he kind of brought that on himself. So I kind of agree with that. But, listen, my big thing at this point is you guys got to come out. You guys got to come out and vote. I mean, there are people out there that are speaking out. I've been speaking out. I've been doing it for 2 years on this podcast, but people don't rally behind anyone who speaks out or anyone who tries to create change or anyone who puts himself, in a position where, they are willing to go head on and create this change. Go head on with the status quo. And there is not enough support. So that is the problem. So ultimately, what is really happening here? Is there truly a majority that do not want to see Spano in office anymore and are tired of the Spanos? Or is the majority just unhappy with certain things within the city, but do not care who's in office, who the mayor is, whether it's Spano, whether it's Moranti, if they even know who Moranti is? A lot of people don't. This is what I was telling them. You got to get to know the Black and Hispanic folks if you want to do anything, Anthony. I'm just saying. Get your wife out there, start speaking some Spanish, And so is there really this majority? Because no one's coming out to vote against the mayor. He's winning 68% of the votes. When people come out and want to challenge the Spanos in this machine, there's no real support. Not enough to beat the mayor. Reverend Coleman's votes, along with Corazon's vote together, was still, I think, less than half of what the mayor got. So is it that there are a lot of people that dislike the mayor, or are a lot of people just having different issues with the city, could care less who the mayor is, just wants these issues addressed? And that's the biggest thing, right? So again, people have to come out and be involved. And so even if you want these issues addressed, you still have to come out. You have to vote for your council person and vote for someone who's going to challenge whoever is the mayor, whether it's Spano, whether it's Moranti, whether it's I don't know who. We need council members to challenge the administration. That is their job. That's what they are supposed to do. And they have not. And that is why, again, I go back to the responsibility of putting it on our council members. And what's sad is that the supermajority look like the Latinos and blacks who are being pushed out, who are largely in poverty in the city of Yonkers. That has not changed for decades. Majority of the students in our schools are black and Latino, and yet they have not pushed harder to improve our schools. They are the ones that are allowing whatever administration, whatever machine, or whatever it is that you think is corrupt here in the city of Yonkers to perpetuate, because they do not do anything about anything. And so ultimately, that's what you need to focus on. Who is your council member? And this year, you have an opportunity in District 3 to vote for change. Tasha Diaz is not for you guys in District 3. Many folks there are living in affordable housing or low-income housing. And she didn't want to see more of that here, right? Because the developers who keep a looking fly and fresh with those 2-finger rings and those, door knocker earrings, the bamboo earrings, and the rapid chains, they fund her campaign. And they don't want more affordable housing here. So if you need more affordable housing, more low-income housing, if you want someone who's going to fight for the schools, who's actually going to be out in the community with signs, who's going to walk all the way up to Albany if they have to make change, then you better get out there and vote for Hector Santiago. Otherwise, you're going to get more of the same, and you can't complain. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Yeah, well, unintentionally, again, my mother told me this many years ago. Freddie, it's not going to fall on your lap. You have to go out there and get it. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting like this for the rest of your life, right? So maybe intentionally or unintentionally, we still, as an individual, know we have to inform ourselves. When things are not going right, why is it that it's not going right? Let me find out. And let's learn this and let's fix it. Again, life is 80% of what you can't control or 20% what you can control. Is that how it goes? Point is, focus on what we can control. We can come out and vote. We can be vocal. We can attend meetings. We can inform ourselves. So that way, we can't say we were intentionally uninformed and we didn't know, right? And now that Basement Politics and other people are out there, you can't continue to say that, right? Ignorance is not a defense in the court of law, right? I'm Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics. I shared your podcast. By the way, check out Anthony DiMaggio. He also did a podcast. He's got the Unfit LT podcast. You have Ron Matt with his podcast. I wanted to give an update on Hector Santiago, but all of a sudden, LoHud changed that article to subscription only, and now I can't read it for you guys. It got a lot of crazy details in there. So if you could get LoHud, check it out. I'm Freddie Vasquez. I'm out of here. Let me real quick. This Democratic primary had 2 candidates who represent a large segment of our community, African Americans and Latino Hispanics. Exactly. Yeah, Mike Spano wins in a landslide. Exactly. Collins Bellamy defeats Cater in a landslide, and Margaret Coleman finishes 3rd in a mayoral primary. The machines and friends and family will always win, always in when there is voter apathy. So, again, they have their voter base, right? And the people should have their voter base, and that's the people. So, again, it's a game. It's about size. It's like soccer, right? Kicking the ball. Oh, they got more people to kick the ball over to this side, so they're going to get it over. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Have a beautiful night, folks. Again, we have to come out and vote. And that's a good point, actually. What I was thinking, when you're going to say more so, and maybe, Joan, is that the fact that 2 of the candidates were women of color, although women these days are not the favorite, right? Women is transgender now, transgender now, women's sports is screwed. But you had a minority women, a black woman, very educated, and Reverend Margaret Coleman spoke very well. And I think she could have done well with everyone, all colors, all races on all sides, if she had more push, more money, a bigger machine, I don't know what, just were able to get out there more, right? Then you had Corazon Pineda Isaac, a Latina in a city that is, 40% plus Latino, Hispanic, and is growing. She's Dominican. A lot of Dominicans have been moving into Yonkers lately. What's up, y'all? ¿Qué lo que? Dímelo. Que la vaina. right? So you guys are here, and she still could not get, right? 2,500 or so people came out to vote for them. Where's the black and Latinos who are going to just come out and vote for a black and Latino or Latina just because you might want to see one become mayor? You don't know what the hell is going on in politics, but you know that you are registered. You haven't voted in a long time because you mostly see people you're not interested in. But now there's a Latina woman. Wait, there's a black woman. I got to come out and vote. I'm just going to vote for them anyway. But you didn't. People didn't. Those that came out to vote had an interest. They know what's going on. They make sure they stay informed. They make sure they do what they got to do to keep themselves ahead. And that is why it's important for the people to come out to vote, get informed. Let's inform each other. Forget about everything else. Let's focus on coming out, being vocal, informing each other, and being united.
Was here in Jersey, wondering why is it that anyone would care about me? Why would they care where I live, whether I'm moving or not, whether my wife is going to divorce me or not? Why does anyone care? Because someone just asked the Yonkers voice. Anyway, have a blessed day.
That's a lot of stars. Hopefully, we're going to get to 3,500 stars. When I get there, I will be happy.
Let's get it popping.
Ready, win. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Ready, win. Fatality.
No!